Hey guys, welcome back to Bonbon's Acceptance. This is Plan B on, I guess this is gonna be Lyra and Chris's Lyra promised not to ask about dating again, but Chris hasn't promised, so there's a loophole here, which I see. I'm hoping Lyra sees it too. Also, they still have Bonbon's cloak, which one of them has to return. But they're really not gonna give up on her. They're never gonna give on her. Anyways, let's hop right into it. Plan B. Celestia's hot, warm sun shined brightly in the early morning sky as Lyra tiredly dragged herself through the snow that covered the path leading to Bonbon's home. Lilith Pony's dark blue coat that was abandoning the night before was neatly folded and held aloft within a golden aura of magic. Lyra was on her way to return the clothing, but not without getting some answers from her friend. Lyra had been up all night thinking about what happened at the Everfree Moon. Chris couldn't sleep either, and kept her company throughout the night, which was great. She was grateful for. Even though they didn't talk much, Chris let her lay on top of him while he petted her mane and massaged her hooves. She loved it when he would rub her soft and sensitive frog with his fingertips. However, she still couldn't sleep, even with the relaxing hoof massage. Lyra grumbled to herself as she tried to keep her eyes open. She walked up to the home she once shared with Bonbon, stopping at the front entrance. She floated the clothing behind her before taking a deep breath. She raised her hoof, knocking on the door 3 times, and waited. She knew today was Bonbon's day off from the candy shop, and it was too early in the morning for her to be out with her other friends, so she had to be home. The unicorn waited patiently for her friend to answer, tapping her hoof on the ground as she organized her thoughts. She really just wanted to know what went wrong, aside from Bonbon smacking Chris's hand away and spilling her soup all over her. If she knew what was really bothering her friend, perhaps they could start working towards some kind of solution. Come on, Bonnie, I know you're home. Lyra quietly grumbled to herself. She moved her hoof up to knock on again, but the door started to slowly creak open before she was able to make contact. Bonbon peered through the crack of the door with only a single cheerless eye showing. Oh, hi, Lyra, she greeted softly as she opened the door completely, revealing this very stressed-looking Mary. Her eyes were puffy and red, clear evidence she had been crying most of the night. Her mane wasn't brushed out. Her curls stuck out in every direction, and she still had a little bit of her makeup on. She wasn't wearing her dress or the flower lily that Chris had given her. However, she was still wearing the gemstone necklace, which could be a good sign. It meant she didn't throw it away in anger or something. Lyra really hoped Bonbon didn't throw away the fire lily. Chris would be so heartbroken if she had. Lyra cleared her throat and tried her best to not look like she had been up all night moping, forcing a bright, everything is okay smile. Good morning, Bonnie, she greeted in a friendly and cheery tone. I hope you're doing okay, she asked awkwardly, trying to break the ice a little. Bonbon frowned sadly as she slowly looked down at her forelegs while she drew a little line back and forth with her hoof, not saying anything wrong. I'm okay, she finally answered, obviously lying as she looked back up to her friend. How's Chris's hand? She asked softly, sounding genuinely concerned. Lyra's smile started to turn into a more genuine one at her friend's concern for Chris. It was reassuring that she cared enough about him to have asked. Oh, he's fine, no burns or anything, Lyra reassured her. Bonbon closed her eyes and let out a soft sigh of relief. Thank goodness. Yeah, he's a pretty tough stallion. Takes more than a little tap on the wrist and some warm soup to bring him down. Lyra chuckled lightly, hoping to ease the tension a little. But he's really worried about you, she added in a soft, serious tone. Bonbon looked away slightly as she rubbed her foreleg with her hoof shyly, not responding. So are you, Bonbon. Lyra. Get their names mixed up. Why do I do that? I'm turning old, man. I'm turning way too old for this shit, somehow. Lyra's smile slowly faded into a dejected frown, sighing that she used her magic to float the cloak that was still behind her towards Bonbon. You left this at the restaurant last night, she explained. Alright, interruption. I had to go do stuff real quick. Gotta go eat. Ate like a half box of a pizza, which is good. Anyways, let's get back into this. So, you left this at the restaurant last night, she explained flatly. Bonbon looked up. Oh, thank you. I guess I kind of forgot about it, she admitted softly, reaching out her hoof to grab the clothing. Lyra released her magic, raping the folded fabric over her friend's foreleg. Bonbon retracted her leg, pressing the clothing to her chest. She remained in the doorway, looking away slightly as she rubbed the cloak on her fur, not really sure what else to do with herself. The two of them stood in awkward silence for what felt like forever before they let out a loud, exhausted sigh. Come on, Bonnie, tell me what's wrong. Whatever happened back at the restaurant, we can work through it. Please just talk to me, she pleaded. Bonbon winced a little at the question before looking back at Lyra with a sorrowful expression. Lyra, you promised, Bonbon softly reminded her, stepping back into her home a little. I'm not asking you for another date, Lyra quickly defended herself, holding up an submissive, but I know you saw something in Chris last night. I just want to know why you felt. I just want to know why you left like you did. Please, Bonnie, just tell me. Bonbon clenched the cloak in her hoof a little tighter as she stunned her head farther away from Lyra. She bit her bottom lip as she thought about what to say. She stammered, causing Lyra to perk her ears up a little so she could hear more clearly. Bonbon hesitated for a moment before saying deeply, I just can't, Lyra, she finally answered completely regrettably, clenching her eyes shut, not wanting to look directly at her friend. Lyra sighed heavily before taking a small step forward. Bonnie, you keep saying that, but why can't you? Is it because of the full thing? She asked, gently speaking to her in a more concerned tone. No, it's more than that, Bonbon admitted softly, opening her new, slightly teary eyes, still not looking in Lyra's direction. More? Lyra asked, a little confused. Does this even have to do with Silverwing? That was almost 5 years ago, Bonnie, Lyra pointed out. You shouldn't assume every stallion you meet would be like him. Damn dog, shut up. I'm trying to read. I know, Chris wouldn't be as cruel as he was, but Bonbon paused for a moment to gather her thoughts. She didn't want to remind Lyra that Twilight was still finding Chris a way home. I'm just scared, okay? She admitted in a soft whisper that was barely audible. Scared? Lyra questioned, raising an eyebrow. Her friend, scared of what? It's complicated, Bonbon answered, simply looking down at the ground. Lyra pulled her head back a bit and blinked a few times. Complicated, she repeated Bonbon's words to her dumbfounded. Bonnie, Chris has been here for almost 2 years now. He's one of the kindest stallions around and has never done a thing to hurt any pony. You can't still be afraid of him like that, can you? Bonbon shook her head a little. It's more than that, she choked off. Lyra groaned loudly and placed a hoof on her forehead, knowing that they were just going around in circles at this point. There was always something that bugged Lyra about her friend. Bonbon never opened up to others when things like this were troubling her. Bonnie, you keep saying that, she exasperated, placing her hoof back down. I can understand that, really I can, but you have to let me in that beautiful little head of yours, she lightly teased, hoping to make Bonbon a little more comfortable with the corrupted topic. I'm sure whatever it is that you're afraid of, it isn't bad as it seems. We can all work this out together. Chris is understanding. I wouldn't be more willing to help you, she did with her sharing smile. Chris really cares, Bonnie. He's not just doing it for me. He wants this to work out. Bonbon shook her head slightly. I know, but I just can't afford to be close to somebody like him, she explained vaguely as a single tear trailed down her cheek. It's just better for every pony this way. Lyra's eyes started to widen in shock, not believing the words that were coming from her friend. Better for every pony? How can you say something like that, Bonnie? Just let us help you, please, she begged, as she raised her voice, feeling a little angry at her friend's continued stubbornness. Forgive me, Lyra, Bonbon whimpered as she took another step back into her room, placing her free hoof on the door. Bonbon, Lyra shouted out. You don't know what you're saying, she argued, raising her voice a little as her frustration mounted. Chris is right for you. As her frustration mounted. Chris is right for you. You need somebody like him in your life. You need to open up and learn to take risks and enjoy the moment. Chris can help you do that. Bonbon only frowned sadly as more tears streamed down her cheeks. Thank you for bringing my cloak back to me, she said softly as she started to slowly close her front door. I love you, Lyra. Please keep your promise to me and don't make Chris ask me about this either. This is hard enough as it is, she whispered sadly before softly closing the door. What? Bonbon, Lyra yelled as the wooden door shut in front of her. As the wooden door shut in front of her. You stubborn mule! Lyra grunted angrily, frowning her brow. Bonnie, I forgive you now. Just come out here and talk to me, she shouted as tears started accumulating in her eyes. She glared hard at the door as thoughts of booking it down, dragging Bonbon out by the tail, taking her to Chris's house and crossed the unicorn's mind several times. Lyra stomped her forehooves on the ground repeatedly, grunting and growling angrily to herself. You won't even give him a chance. Chris could bring you so much joy and happiness if you just let him, she yelled into the door as tears started to stream down her cheeks. He needs you in his life just as much he needs he needs you like I need you, she added, panting heavily. After no sound was heard from the other side of the door, Lyra jerked herself around and started to stomp her way back home, but stopped and turned her head to say one funny thing. I'm not giving up on you, you hear me? She shouted as loud as she could before quickly galloping away. Lyra stormed into Chris's home, bucking the door shut behind her, causing Chris to run out of his bathroom. Lyra, he called out in concern. What happened? What did she say? Lyra grunted in frustration as she sat on the floor and dropped her head down slightly. She said she was afraid. She whimpered slightly as a single tear fell from her eye. I asked her why, and all she said was, it's complicated, Lyra growled, feeling her anger rise again. She always does this. Whenever something serious is bothering her, she just locks up and doesn't talk to anybody about what's wrong. Chris pondered Lyra's words. Maybe she's just afraid of how we would react if she told us what she was really feeling, he muttered to himself softly. Lyra huffed angrily, not hearing Chris's comment. She's just so stubborn. I just can't understand why she won't tell us what's bothering her. She rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly, having a good idea about what Bonbon was afraid of and why she was keeping it to herself. I should have gone with you. I could have talked to her, she said sadly. Lyra shook her head. No, that would have made it worse. She probably won't even come out of her house if she saw you there. Chris clenched his tired eyes shut as he rubbed the bridge of his nose with his thumb and index finger, knowing she was right. He sighed sadly as he walked towards Lyra. He sat down on the floor next to her, wrapping his arm around her withers and gently pulled her into his side. I'm really sorry, Lyra. I bucked everything up. Lyra growled, not wanting to hear Chris blame himself again for something that wasn't his fault. She scowled and pressed the side of her head against his chest, shifting her eyes. I don't want to hear that anymore. You were only trying to help. Nothing that happened last night was your fault. But I should have known that Mama would react like she did, Chris admitted shyly. She's still afraid of me. Lyra shook her head against his chest. No, she isn't afraid of you like she used to be. It's something else that's bothering her. Lyra pulled her head back to look into Chris's eyes. We just have to help her get through whatever it is that she's having trouble with. Chris frowned slightly as he gazed back into Lyra's eyes. Lyra, I just don't know if we can... I mean, you saw what she did back there. She's not going to want to come anywhere near me again, let alone talk to me. Don't say that, Lyra explained, raising her voice a little as more tears started to build up in her eye. You don't want to give up on her, do you? She asked in a little loudly enough in your panic. No, Lyra, that's not... Bonnie could use somebody like us in her life, Lyra interrupted him. And I know you can help her to enjoy life and loosen up. You can make her so happy just like you make me happy. Chris paused for a moment as her words settled in. Do you really think I could do something like that for her? He asked with an unsure tone. I know you can, Lyra retorted with a sad sigh as she laid her back against Chris's chest. Chris frowned for a moment. I believe you, Lyra. I really do, but I just don't know what we can do. You told me last night that Bonbon made you promise her to not bring this up with her again. Lyra groaned a little, knowing he was right. We'll think of something, she said sadly. I'm not going up on her. Chris nodded his head even though Lyra couldn't see the gesture. I don't want to give up either, he said, as he sighed deeply. I would give anything to have a second chance with her. I really thought we were just starting to connect, Chris said exasperated. If only I had more time with her. I knew I could get her to come out of her shell. Or at least get her to tell me what's wrong. I know you can, Lyra agreed. We just need to get you two together for a while. She needs time to get to know you more and open up. Chris wrapped his arm around Lyra, holding her a little tighter as he laid his head on the back of her neck, assuming I could get her to hang around me for more than a second, he mused. Lyra knew that getting Bonbon to spend time around Chris was going to be next to impossible at this point. Bonbon could be a very stubborn mare at times, but she knew if anybody was going to get Bonbon to come out of her protective bubble, it would be Chris. But how could she get them together? Maybe I can tie them together with a rope. That way Bonbon will have no choice but to talk to Chris. Lyra thought to herself, giggling slightly at the ridiculous thought. Wait, could she actually do that? What if there was a spell that would let her do something similar to that? Like make it so that you couldn't leave each other's sides for a while. That way Chris could start talking to Bonbon, then she would have to be... Yeah, Chris does odd jobs, so... He has any day of the week. Lyra jerked her head up, startling at Chris a little. Whoa, you okay? He asked, relaxing his hold on her. Yeah, she trailed off her answer. She trailed off her answer off, not really paying attention to his words as she started off into space, losing herself in her thoughts. Excuse me. She couldn't really be considering trying to tie Chris and Bonbon together like that, because Chris wouldn't agree to something like that, and Bonbon definitely wouldn't want that. She would have to make it seem like it was an accident of some kind, and it wouldn't be too hard to play it off as some kind of spell mishap. But was there even a spell like that? She would have to do some research at the library, but if she could find such a spell, then she could bind Chris and Bonbon together. That way Chris could start to get Bonbon to open up, and he could even help her in her shop and keep her company. Oh, this day was so almost too perfect. Chris did say that he would do anything to have another chance with Bonbon, so he couldn't be too mad at her about doing it, right? This could really work. It was crazy, nuts even, but it could work. Plus, this little plan wouldn't really be breaking her promise to Bonbon. She wouldn't be asking her friend to another date or anything like that. It would just be a little happy accident, and they didn't need to be stuck together for just long enough. Lyra, Chris called to her, waving a hand in front of her face, snapping her out of her thoughts. It seemed like he had been calling to her for a while, but she was zoned out. You alright? Oh, yes, I just remember that I need to help Twilight at the library today. Yeah, she explained a little nervously with an awkward smile. Chris cocked his eyebrow at her a little. You do? And Lyra nodded her head. Yeah, sorry, I didn't tell you before. I just almost forgot about it after what happened, you know, she explained almost a little too quickly as she picked herself up, making Chris release his hold on her completely. I must be out for a bit, though, so I'm not sure when I will be back, Lyra clarified as she backed up in the direction of the front door. You will, Chris asked sadly. Will? Well, will you be home for supper? I'm not sure, Lyra answered as she turned around and used her magic to open the door. Just save me some more of whatever you make. I love you, bye, she added as she practically leapt out the door. I love, Chris tried to say, but the doors haven't cut him off. You too. Chris said to himself, not quite sure what got into his marathon. So suddenly, he picked himself up off the floor, thinking about what he could do about the Bonbon situation. He wanted to just go over to her house and talk to her, but knew Lyra was right. Bonbon would just run away from him. Maybe he should just lay low for a while and wait for Lyra to return before he planned his next move. That is, whenever Lyra got back from whatever it was that she was helping with at the library. Come to think of it, why didn't Twilight ask him to help out at the library? Because she doesn't always need your help. It's Twilight. No, this won't work either, Lyra grunted in frustration as she closed yet another spell tome. She used her magic to set the tome on the large, already red tower of books, and picked out another one from the smaller to be red tower. She had spent hours in the Crystal Castle library looking over dozens of spell books. Nothing seemed to match what she was looking for, and the candle she was using for extra light was slowly melting into a wax puddle on the table surface. Lyra found lots of spells that could fuse Chris and Bonbon together, but she didn't want them to have to share one body from the looks of it. She messed up any of those spells even a little, it could end in disaster, and get them separated would be even more of a complex nightmare. One spell she found was a little closer to what she wanted. It would have linked their minds together, but that couldn't work either. They would both have to be placed into a coma, and if the spell lasted too long, their minds would eventually mold into one, which meant cutting the link between them and could cause a lot of irreversible damage. She found dozens of mind-controlling spells. If she was desperate enough she could just make Bonbon fall in love with Chris, but she didn't want that. She wasn't about to take her friend's free will. Even thinking about it made Lyra sick to her stomach. It was bad enough that she was thinking about forcing the two of them to be close to each other, but she wasn't going to just brainwash her friend. That would be horrible. Now Bonbon had to open up to Chris on her own. Lyra slammed her head down in the book she was reading, feeling like she could just give up. Nothing seemed to come close to what she wanted, and she wasn't talented enough to make her own magic like Twilight was. Maybe she could just teleport them both to some island where they would be forced to live together. Then Bonbon would have no choice but to talk to Chris at some point. Well, maybe she didn't have to teleport them to an island. Maybe she could just lock them in a closet together and force them to do 7 minutes in heaven, or like 7 days in heaven. Lyra tilted her head to the side, laying her cheek on the cold pages of the book as she looked towards the almost completely melted candle, thinking more about how ridiculous an idea like that would be. I should just lock Bonnie in with Chris and let him give her the best massage of her life. Then she would come around for sure, she remarked sarcastically to herself. Lyra closed her exhausting eyes, smiling to herself as she thought about Chris giving her friend an enlightening massage with those magical fingers of his while they were sealed in a room. Yeah, that would do it, alright, she sighed as the sleepless night finally started to catch up with her. Wait, so we can just enter the castle at will? Because that's also Twilight's home. I'm pretty sure that's not a possibility. Suddenly, Lyra's eyes shut up open as she jerked her head up. Wait! She shouted louder than was necessary. Lyra quickly looked towards her already red tower of books and knocked them over, spilling them out across the table in front of her. She started frantically digging around for a book that she previously read. Where is it? She questioned herself, pushing the books around with hooves. There was one spell she remembered reading now, but passed over it. Taking such a spell couldn't really help in the situation. The unicorn found the book. Yes, she cheered, using her magic to quickly open it. She flipped through all the pages until her eyes fell upon the section of spells she was looking for. Seals and barriers. Lyra read the chapter title out loud to herself, continuing to read until she found the spell in question. Restriction barrier. She mumbled as her eyes started to frantically read the spell's history, usage, and execution. Lyra quickly learned that the spell itself was mainly used to detain evil creatures that had threatened the creature long ago. It was a lesser form of a banishment that they could easily use on smaller threats like Radical and Timberwolf attacks. The spell would imprison anything within a barrier for any desired amount of time set by the caster. It could last over 1,000 years if necessary, but you would have to be an Alicorn to achieve that spell level. This was a difficult spell for sure. It was definitely beyond Lyra's current abilities to cast, but not impossible for her to learn and be able to use in time. She would need to practice and memorize the spell for it to last longer than a minute. She wouldn't need long to learn it. If she really tried hard and concentrated enough, she could get it to work for a week, maybe 2. Lyra read the spell's instructions over and over again, burning it into her memory before turning her attention to the candle next to her. She was confident she could do a small test of the spell and see if she could cast it correctly. If done right, then she couldn't be able to touch the flame at all. Lyra lit up her horn with magic, focusing on the candle in front of her until a small light of gold flashed around the flame. She swallowed She slowly inched her hoofs towards the flame until her forward moments were halted just before the edge of her hoof could touch the small flickering flare. It worked. Lyra relaxed her foreleg, letting it drop down on the table. She could cast the basic level of the spell easy enough. But how would she get those two together in the same room? She shouldn't be thinking about locking them in just one room for 2 weeks. If she was planning on putting them together for longer than a day, then she would need to find a place where they could live comfortably. But where? That castle could work out, but I'm pretty sure you're gonna have to trap Twilight and Spike in there. A home of some kind would be preferred, but she couldn't put them in their own homes. If somebody came by and saw them, they would know something was up and help them get out. It would have to be somewhere secluded. Lyra massaged her temples with her hooves as she tried to think of a place she could act out her plan. Her parents had a cabin a few miles away from Ponyville that they lived in during the summer when they came down from Cancelot. It was small with only one bedroom and bathroom in it, but she didn't really have a lot of other options at this point. It would have to do it, and it had everything they needed to live comfortably. All she had to do was make sure it was stocked with food and any other essentials that would cost a pretty bit. But it would all be worth it if this worked out. She might even be able to join them in the cabin to make sure that everything went smoothly. No, that wouldn't work. She had to leave them alone to their own devices. If she was there, they would only have pester her to break the spell and let them leave. Mama would cling to her as well, and now warm up to Chris. They have to be left alone for this. Please tell me you're gonna at least tell Chris about this, right? Please tell me you're gonna tell Chris about this, okay? But how can she get them in there together? Mama wouldn't agree to go into a cabin if Chris was there. She would have to fib a little. Yeah, just tell a little white lie. If she could get them both to agree to a 2-week-long vacation with her, she could get them to meet her there. Then before they could notice each other, she would slip out and cast a spell. It was a solid plan, a crazy one, but it could work. Chris might be upset, angry even, but he would understand and forgive her. Bonbon might be less forgiving, but if things worked out, then she might be thinking her by the end of this. Don't think she's gonna be. She had to do this if she was going to be with the ones she loved for the rest of her life, but did she have any other options at this point? Lyra looked down at her own open spellbook and stared blankly at it for a moment before nodding to herself. It had to be this way. It was her only option in order to get through to Bonbon, and it still wasn't technically violating her promise she made to her friend. It was settled. She would start working towards making this plan a reality, starting with practicing the spell. Lyra started to read more about the barrier spell and its execution, getting herself ready to start practicing for the rest of the day. Berry punched down the rest of her sangria, slamming the glass door on the bar's counter's surface as her whole body shivered in delight. Oh, that's good, she cooed. My two favorite things, punch and alcohol, she sang with another slight shiver, and she turned her head to look at her depressed friend. Hey, Miss Mopey Pants, you're going to tell me why you dragged me out to this bar tonight? Not that I'm complaining or anything, she added as she started to munch on the little pieces of fruit left in her glass. The bar Bonbon took Berry Punch to was one of the smaller ones in Ponyville and was practically empty at the moment. They had gotten there shortly before dusk, right when the moon was just starting to come out, so the nighttime crowd hadn't started to flood in yet. Bonbon kept her hooves on the side of her head as she stared down at the untouched mojito in front of her. I'm sorry, Berry, I just have a lot on my mind, she sighed deeply. I just needed to get out of the house. Yeah, it doesn't take a genius to see that you're down in the dumps, Berry Punch stated, as she waved an eager hoof in the air, trying to get the bartender's attention. A brown unicorn mare with a dark red mane and a white vest walked up to Berry. Yes, ma'am, she asked with a smile. Another sangria, Berry cheered almost too excitedly. Right away, miss, the bar mare replied as she used her magic to pour out another glass while preparing to garnish the dark drink with various fruits. Berry smiled as the bar mare started to make her next drink, then turned to Bonbon again. Well, you came to the right mare to hope you forget about all those pesky problems of yours. She stated with a bright smile as she patted her mopey friend on the back. We'll have lots of fun tonight. Bonbon groaned a little before placing her hooves down on the counter. Berry, she gently acknowledged her friend as she kept her saddened gaze fixed on her drink. Berry happily hummed. What did you tell Chris about the fire lily? Bonbon asked, turning her head, giving Berry Punch a concerned expression. Berry cocked her head to the side slightly. Who? Bonbon sighed as she looked back down at her drink. You know, the human that lives here, the stallion Lyra is dating? Oh, you mean Crackers, Berry stated in remembrance. I talked to him about that a while ago. Bonbon turned her head back to Berry with a scowl. His name is not Crackers, it's Chris, she corrected in a slightly agitated tone. Chris, Crackers, whatever, Berry shrugged. I'm not real sure. I remember telling him that much, though. She paused, tapping a hoof to her chin for a moment as she walked back. I don't remember him pestering me a bunch a bunch about gift ideas for you for some reason. I kept telling him not to go get you a cookbook or something, but he said others already suggested that to him. One looked up to her friend, raising an eyebrow. Wait, so you told him to get me a cookbook? She questioned. Yeah, but he wouldn't leave me alone after that. He said there had to be something else that you might like, so I thought it was something possible for him to get you, just so he would leave me alone. Barry huffed in annoyance, remembering how persistent the human was. So that's when you told him about the fire lily? Yeah, but that was like months ago. Barry smirked as her new drink floated down in front of her from the barber's magic. Thank you, she cheered, before turning back to her friend to continue her story. He asked me why the fire lily would be a good gift, and I told him how it helped you find your cutie mark. Then he thanked me and dashed off. She chuckled before she took a small sip of her drink, saving it this time. I didn't even bother telling the poor sap how rare a flower like that is. You want this cherry from my drink? You want this cherry from my drink? She added, pushing her cup over to Bonbon a little. You told him that? Bonbon groaned loudly, slamming her head down on the counter, causing Barry to jump in surprise and pour her cup. You okay there, Bon? She asked, a little worried. Bonbon turned her head to the side, keeping her cheek on the cold countertop as she peered at her friend with a saddened frown. He found one, Barry. He found a fire lily and gave it to me as a gift on our date. Barry Punch almost spit out the sip she was taking from her sangria, making her cough and choke. She hit her chest with her hoof a few times as she called, What? She finally managed to choke out. He actually went out and got you one? You're lying. I want to see it. Do you still have it? She asked, frantically in shock. Baba only groaned, ignoring her friend's questions and request as she lifted her head up so she could stare back at the mojito. What would you do, Barry? She asked with a sad sigh. Do about what? If you were me and the human gave you a gift like that on the date and asked you to be a part of his herd, would you give him a chance? Bowen asked, looking over to Barry. Barry Punch furrowed her brow a little. I don't know, she said when alone. I mean, I don't really know him all that well, and he's kind of weird, she admitted, rubbing the back of her neck with hoof. I mean, a gift like that is sweet and all, but if I was going on looks, I'd say no. Bonbon frowned a little. I don't think he's that bad looking, she mumbled in a softer whisper as she looked back down at her drink. Barry cringed a little as her friend's admittance to liking the human's appearance. Listen, Bon, I think what you really need to do is... There you are, some pony from the bar's entrance yelled, causing every pony in the silent chant to jerk their heads around to see where it was. Bonbon's eyes widened when she saw a sickly-looking Lyra with heartstrings an inch away. Lyra? Bonbon shouted out in shock, covering her mouth with her hooves. What happened to you? Are you okay? She asked in concern. The unicorn looked like she had been through Tartarus and back. Her mane was sticking out in every direction, and her whole body glistened with what looked like sweat. Lyra galloped up to Bonbon and Barry, jumping up onto the stool that was closest to her friend. Bonnie, I came here to say I'm sorry. Lyra exhaled quickly in one breath before starting to pant slightly, staring right into Bonbon's eyes. Bonbon dropped her hoofs to her chest as she furrowed her brows, examining Lyra's condition a little closer. The unicorn's eyes had heavy bags under them, like she had been up for days. Bonbon fought the urge to scrunch up her muzzle at the overwhelming minty musk that was coming from the unicorn. Lyra, what happened to you? What? Oh, nothing. I was just running around all day, yeah. And I was thinking it was wrong of me to keep you pestering you about joining my herd, so I wanted you to say I was sorry. Lyra quickly explained, smiling brightly. Bonbon raised a confused eyebrow at her haggard-looking friend. No, Lyra, it wasn't your fault. I understand why you did it, but I'm sorry things just can't work out, she said, deeply turning her head away from Lyra a little, and for what I did. Lyra grabbed Bonbon on the shoulders and shook her a little, causing her to jerk her head back. Forget that. I feel bad for what happened, and I want to make it up to you. You do? Bonbon questioned, frowning in confusion a little. Yes, Lyra responded quickly. I know since I've moved out, it's been hard for us to hang out and stuff, so I was thinking we should both go out and take a short vacation together. Say for 2 weeks, she asked loudly, giving Bonbon a wide, toothy smile, nodding her head slightly to try and coax her friend into saying yes. Bonbon turned her head to see how Barry Punch was taking all this. The plum-colored mare just sat there with a stunned, wide-eyed look, but shrugged quickly when she noticed that she was being looked at. Bonbon turned her head back towards Lyra. I don't know, Lyra. That sounds nice and all, but this is kind of sudden. And what about Chris? Don't worry about Chris. He's totally cool with it, Lyra reassured. He knows how close we are, and he wants us to spend some time together. He does? Bonbon questioned. But what about my... Your shop will be fine for 2 weeks, Lyra quickly counter-interrupting Bonbon. It's not like you get that much business in this time of the year anyways. Bonbon frowned a little more, deep in thought, looking down at the floor for a moment. As she considered Lyra's offer, it would be nice to get some time alone with her again, and she really could use a break from everything that's been going on, but I won't mention anything about the herd or Chris or the date. Pinky promised, Lyra quickly added, interrupting Bonbon's thoughts as she placed a hoof over her eye. Bonbon looked back at Lyra's still smiling face as a small smile of her own started to spread across her lips. I think I would really like that, she answered in a soft, warm tone. Yes, Lyra cheered, putting a hoof in the air. Bonbon chuckled a little at her friend's enthusiasm. It was a little surprising and at the same time really leaving to see Lyra taking this whole herd rejections things and that. Bonbon chuckled a little at her friend's enthusiasm. It was a little surprising and at the same time relieving, I don't know, to see Lyra take this whole herd rejections thing so well now, especially after how she left both of them last night. Thank you for being so understanding about all this, Lyra. Bonbon thanked with a soft smile. Lyra's smile faded just a little at her friend's words. Oh, yeah, of course, Bonnie. I understand completely. She answered awkwardly, darting her eyes left and right. So, where are we going for our vacation, and when? Bonbon asked gently with a slight blush. I have this nice little cabin a few miles from where we can stay. It's really cozy, and we can go hiking on light a bonfire. It'll be fun, Lyra chirped. Bonbon smiled a little wider at that, giving Lyra a more dreamy gaze. Oh, that sounds lovely, Lyra. Lyra nodded her head a little. Yeah, it's pretty fucking awesome. So how soon can you go? Bonbon thought about that for a moment. Well, I guess I can leave as soon as next week if you like. Lyra winced a little, thinking she might need a little more time to perfect her spell. How about 2 weeks from now? She asked in a more shaky voice. 2 weeks should be fine. Bonbon responded with a slight nod. Perfect. Lyra sheared, quickly kissing Bonbon on the lips, causing her to blush a little more. Lyra broke the kiss before hopping down on the stairs. Don't forget, 2 weeks from now. Okay, Bonnie? Lyra stated as she slowly backed her way towards the bar entrance. Bonbon giggled. I won't forget. Plus, I'm sure you'll keep reminding me, she slightly teased as she watched the slowly retreating unicorn. Lyra gave me her an awkward, yeah, you know, always the reminder. You know me, always the reminder. She chuckled nervously. Anyways, I gotta go, but I will talk to you later. Okay, bye. She said as she quickly turned around and walked out of the bar, heading towards Chris's home. Bonbon giggled softly and shook her head before turning back to Barry, who was now giving her a smug smile. What? Bonbon asked flatly, giving her a confused look. You really know how to attract the weird ones, Barry teased, chuckling. Bonbon puffed her cheeks scowled angrily at her. I thought that was very sweet of her to do, she retorted. Barry chuckled a little more. Yeah, she said, waving a dismissive. How about I'll buy you another mojito once you finish that one? She kindly offered with a wink, pointing at the still full glass in front of Bonbon with a lazy Bonbon's scowl slowly turned into a more friendly. I would enjoy that. Thank you, Barry. Oh, Lyra. Please tell Chris the truth. Like, please tell him the truth. Chris directly pulled out a small container from his kitchen cabinet. He was going to use it to store some of the vegetable stew he made for himself and Lyra that night. Earlier in the day, he tried to take a small nap, but couldn't stop thinking about what had happened at the Every Free Moon and how he could approach Bonbon about it. He thought he would at least head over to her home and tell her that he was sorry. He understood why Bonbon reacted the way she did, and he wanted to tell her that he understood or wanted to at least be her friend. Chris lay on exhausted and satisfied as he scooped up some of the vegetable stew from the pot with his wooden ladle. He slowly poured it into the container he was holding as he continued to think maybe he should talk to Lyra first before going over to apologize to Bonbon. That is, once she got back from the library. Chris knew that Lyra was a big pony and could take care of herself sometimes, but he couldn't help how worried he felt about her. She did leave kind of suddenly, and her explanation of why she left was a little strange to say the least. He just hoped she was okay and would return soon. Suddenly, Chris could hear the sound of his front door opening and closing, followed by an all too familiar clip-clop of hooves on the hardwood floor. Chris let out a long sigh of relief. Lyra was home now. Hey Lyra, I'm back in the kitchen. I was just about to save you some supper, but I can pour you some stew in a bowl for you if you like. He called out to her as he poured the stew in the container back into the spot. Lyra didn't respond, and Chris listened to her hoofs as they got louder but stopped once he hit the tile floor. Once she hit the tile flooring of the kitchen. Lyra, he called out softly as he turned his head to see her. His eyes started to widen once he saw how haggard, sweaty, and out of breath she looked. Lyra, are you okay? Lyra just smiled up at him with a half-little gaze as she panted slightly, without saying a word. She slowly started to make her way towards him, keeping her gaze fixed on his surprised and worried eyes. What happened? You look like you just ran 100 miles, Chris quickly pointed out, sounding even more worried the closer she got. His senses were hit with a strong minty fragrance that was no doubt coming from the mirror since she had been sweating so much. It was a good thing ponies smelled nice when they perspire. Okay, you drink. There we go without his comment. Twilight needed a lot of help at the library, she answered simply in between pants. When she was close enough, she stood on her hind legs and wrapped her forelegs around Chris's chest, hugging him tightly. She laid her head under his neck, and she leaned her hot and sweaty body against him. Chris wrapped his arms around her, ignoring how wet she felt as he held her close. Lyra, you're burning up. Is something wrong? He asked, concerned about his mere friend's condition and odd behavior. Well, more odd than usual. Lyra said, lightly, as she squeezed Chris a little tighter. Everything's going to be alright, Chris, she whispered, sweetly, as she rubbed her cheek against his collarbone. What do you mean? Chris asked, feeling very confused at this moment. At this point. Do you love me? Lyra asked, suddenly throwing Chris off guard. Do I love you? Chris repeated her question, almost as if he was offended that she asked something so ridiculous. Lyra, I love you more than anything. You're the best part of my life. Why would you think otherwise? Lyra let out a heavy sigh as she rubbed his side with her hoof. Would you still love me even if I did something really stupid? Something really stupid, Chris repeated her words, this time sounding more confused. Well, you do stupid stuff every day, and I'm still around, aren't I? He teased lightly with a small chuckle, rubbing her soaked back with his hands as their embrace continued. Lyra didn't laugh like he thought she would. Chris, I'm serious, she responded softly, as if she was on the verge of tears. Chris frowned a little. Lyra, he called out to her gently. I don't know what has gotten into you, but I will never stop loving you, no matter what you did. You bring me nothing but joy and happiness, and I want that to last forever, he explained as he laid his head on top of hers. I'm afraid you're stuck with me, he added. Lyra smiled as she lifted her head up, causing Chris to do the same. She locked eyes with him, giving a longing gaze. Chris, let's... She paused, frowning sadly for a moment, losing herself in his eyes before smiling again. Let's go on a vacation together, just the two of us, she offered, sounding a little unsure for some reason. Chris lifted his head to the side and cocked his eyebrow at her. But what about Bonbon? Oh shit. Lyra slowly shook her head left and right. Don't worry about Bonnie. She's not going anywhere. But I think it's important that we go to her, and Lyra interrupted him by pressing her lips against his, kissing him softly before pulling her head back. Don't worry. I think Bonnie just needs her space right now. When we get back, we'll go talk to her, she stated calmly, keeping her loving gaze on Chris. Aye, Chris thought for a moment. Lyra could be right. Maybe Bonbon just needed time to think things through. Plus, it would help if they kept it wouldn't help if they kept pestering her. I guess you're right, he admitted with a sad sigh. So when did you want to do this little adventure? 2 weeks from now. That soon? He questioned, raising his voice a little. I don't know, Lyra. I have appointments to work for the Elements for Harmony for the rest of this month, and I don't think they would be happy with me cancelling on them like that. Lyra frowned a little. The Elements are kind mares, they will understand. And when was the last time you had time off? Chris couldn't respond to that one because he has never had any extended amount of time off. Exactly, and if they have an issue with it, then I'll talk to them personally. You work your flank off for them and deserve a break, Lyra huffed angrily, standing her ground on the issue. Chris chuckled nervously. That's okay, honey, I can talk to them, but where would we go for a vacation? A nice little cabin a few miles away from here, she quickly explained, giving Chris a sultry gaze. But I'll tell you about it more later, she cooed as she kissed Chris deeply on the lips. Chris pushed into the kiss a little, pressing her still warm and damp body against his. Her sweat was getting his shirt wet, but he didn't care. He slowly broke off the kiss and smiled warmly at Lyra. Well, I know you have been out for a while. I left you some vegetable stew if you're hungry. Lyra hummed as she massaged Chris's chest with her. Oh, I'm hungry, alright, she cooed, giving Chris a lustful stare. As she licked her lips exaggeratively. Well, I can heat a bowl up for you, Chris happily offered, as he let go of Lyra and turned to pour her a bowl of stew. Lyra blinked a few times, and she dropped back to the floor. What, Chris? She called, raising her voice a little. Chris looked over his shoulder at Lyra, who was giving him a confused look. What's wrong? He asked. Lyra going, dropping his head down slowly. Sweet Celeste, you're dumb sometimes, she said, looking back at Chris. She took a deep breath and shut her eyes tight as she scratched up her face in heavier concentration. Chris turned around to face her, giving her a confused look. What are you doing? He asked as Lyra started to grunt and growl, clenching her eyes shut even tighter. Lyra's face started to turn a bright red as her recording slowly started to flicker and spark, but the unicorn soon gave up, exhaling the breath while she was holding. Oh, for buck's sake, she breathed, panting heavily. Did you exhaust all your magic today? Chris asked, feeling very concerned. He had only seen Lyra struggle to cast a spell once before, and that was when she was constantly practicing her preservation spell for the fire earlier he got Bonbon, but she had never been this exhausted before. Twilight needed a lot of help, she panted, as she slowly made her way up to Chris. She bit the hem of his shirt and started to weakly tug him out of the kitchen. Chris raised his eyebrow at her, but let himself be dragged along as she pulled him out of the kitchen and made her way towards his bedroom. He saw where Lyra was taking him and was finally able to put two and two there. Lyra, you seem really worn out. You sure you want to do something like this? Yes, Lyra growled through the fabric in her mouth. Why don't you eat something? I can just give you a nice massage. I mean, it's not like I'm going anywhere anytime soon. We can do this once you're rested, Chris pointed out. Lyra stopped her tugging for a moment and she looked up to Chris. She wasn't about to tell him she was going to be busy for the next 2 weeks, getting things ready for him and Bonbon to live together. She wouldn't be able to be with him for a whole month and wanted to spend the night with him while she could. When your married friend asks you for sex, you don't question it, Lyra mumbled through the fabric in her teeth as she started tugging and continuing to lead Chris. Oh, okay, Chris surrendered as he was dragged into the room. Clop will be continued in part 2. Wait, so there's a part 2 of Pan B? Yep, it is. Okay, I like how part 2 is probably always going to be the part Clop or something. Anyways, guys, thank you all for watching, listening to what you guys do, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye. What's going to be talking about?
How when you kiss another human being, you're technically making one long tunnel from butthole to butthole.
Butthole.